G'day, Jason the Middle-Aged Gear Junkie here. In the last year or so, I have rekindled my love of Boss pedals. But rather than just do a video about my favourite Boss pedals, what I thought would be a really cool idea is if I reached out to some of my favourite channels that I like to watch and asked them to be a part of this video. There are 3 other channels that have contributed to this video, and what I've asked them to do is to present their favourite Boss pedals and how they like to use them. They might throw in a couple of honourable mentions as well. First up, from England, we have Michael Banfield. Now, Michael is an excellent player, and he's incredibly good at explaining how certain artists use effects in particular songs and then showing you how to replicate those kinds of sounds. I find his channel to be very informative and very interesting. So over to you, Michael.
Hey Jason, thanks for having me on the channel. One of my favourite Boss pedals is the classic analog delay, the DM2. But I actually want to talk about an alternative to the DM2 that I think isn't talked about as much. It's the DD7. I think there's 5 main reasons why if you like the classic analog delay of the DM2, then you'll love the DD7. The first thing is that the analog mode on the DD7 is just a really good emulation of the DM2. It doesn't sound exactly the same, but because the DD7 is digital, you don't get any of the high-end noise of the DM2, so it actually can sound a little bit warmer. Some people might actually prefer the sound of the DD7 emulation. They sound pretty close though, have a listen. Reason number 2 is that the delay times on the DD7 are so much longer than the DM2. So if you really like the sound of the DM2, but you enjoy having access to those longer delay times, then the DD7 has you covered. Number 3 is that the DD7 has tap tempo as well. So just like before, if you like the sound of the DM2 but you like your delay times to be rhythmically precise, then the DD7 can do it either using the internal foot switch on the DD7, or if you find that fiddly, you can just connect an external foot switch instead. Reason number 4 is stereo options. There's so many stereo options on the DD7, it'd take almost a whole video to cover them all. Just know that it can do the direct and wet signal separation that pedals like the DM2 Waza version has, the reissue of the DM2, it can do that. It can do a cool panning delay where it kind of ping-pongs between left and right. It can do a dual delay where you've got 2 different delay times for each side of the stereo signal, and it can do loads of other stuff as well. Just know that if you have a stereo setup or ever want to use your delays in stereo, the DD7 has you covered. Reason number 5 is just the price. I normally see the DD7 go for half the price or less than vintage DM2s and the reissued DM2Ws. So basically it's a good deal, and I haven't even mentioned that it has a looper, a reverse delay, a modulated delay, so if you ever want to use those, they're available as well. Bottom line is, if you like the DM2, I think you should really give the DD7 a good chance as well. One of my other favourite Boss pedals that I really should mention because I feature it so much on my channel is the good old OD3. I use this as a kind of full range amp type overdrive pedal, and when stacking it really helps take out the fizz out of a lot of distortion pedals and round off those harsh edges. See if you can hear the difference it makes to the sound of this DS2. Another is the BF2. I've done a video on this, and it's just because when you get to grips with really how modulation sounds are made, you realise that a simple 4-knob analog flanger like the BF2 is all you actually need to create chorus, phaser, univibe, vibrato, and it's really satisfying to be able to get all those sounds just from one simple analog pedal.
Next up from New York State, we have Jeff from Stompbox Breakdown. Now, I've only been watching his channel for about 6 months, but I can't get enough of it. He's an excellent presenter, but he's particularly good at explaining how effects work in a way that's really easy to understand. He's got a quirky sense of humor as well, which I also enjoy. Over to you, Jeff.
Hi there, I'm the guy from Stompbox Breakdown. It's a YouTube channel where I mess around with pedals and try to get to the bottom of what makes them so special and, well, let's be honest, fun. And Jason asked me to pick out a couple of my favorite Boss pedals and talk about them. So I'll start with the first one that jumped right to mind, the RT20 Rotary Ensemble. This is a rotary speaker simulator, and what I really like about it, aside from the hypno wheel on the front here, is how the bass and treble components operate independently. So as it's spinning up and slowing down, these will accelerate and decelerate at different rates, and that gives us some truly unique interactions that you just don't get when these two are locked together. The newer MD 200 and 500 modulation pedals include a rotary effect, so I guess there's really no reason to upgrade this or make a new version of it, but I just love the way this is laid out. I love that there's 3 different Leslie voicings plus a univibe, and I just have a whole lot of fun with this. It's absolutely worth the space that it takes up on your pedal board. All right, next up is a fairly newish pedal and an example of Boss still innovating and trying out weird new things, the Terra Echo. This is meant to create an ambient atmospheric reaction effect that blends delay and echo with a little bit of, I guess you'd call it octave harmonic noise making or something. It's a lot of things. Check this out. What's really fun about this pedal is that it's incredibly responsive to your playing dynamics. So if you play softly, it's going to act kind of closer to a regular delay and reverb pedal. And when you really dig into the strings, you get those longer space trails effects. It's also got a sound hold mode, which is very cool. It's just a wonderful pedal that sounds kind of funky by itself, but also is a whole lot of fun as like a bonus pedal on your board for towards the end of the night. Up next, yet another digital reverb and delay pedal, the RV3 digital reverb and delay. Now, normally a pedal that does 2 effects does one of them well at best. This has a really unique voicing that's not super over the top, dark and murky, but also not sparkly, clean, early digital. And I grab this and I really think of bands like Coldplay and Minus the Bear. And even though it doesn't have a ton of flexibility, I can throw this in between my guitar and an amp, and I can trust it to always fit into the mix. It evokes a feeling of something that is being created rather than, hey, check out that crazy effect. It's a style of delay that you just don't see very much anymore, and one that I would happily buy as a Waza reissue. If I can fit one more in here, it's the DC2 Waza, the Dimension C pedal. Sometimes I like chorus to stand out as a modulation effect. Other times I just want those notes to kind of hang in the air and sparkle a little bit. This one is definitely for the latter, and it works by having two copies of the signal oscillating like a typical chorus, but out of phase. So you get a shimmery sound without the sweep or the pitch shifting effect being too distracting. I was first introduced to the dimension effect by a guitar teacher who had a DC3, that's the digital dimension, on his board, and he used this for a subtle chorus effect. And I really wanted one of those, but they were really expensive, so I bought a CE20, you can see it up here somewhere, that has a whole bunch of chorus sounds plus the dimension effect. Once the Waza version of the DC2 came out, I was able to get my hands on this one, and it became my go-to subtle chorus-ish effect. It's insanely practical. The Waza version is ultra quiet, plus it's got this switch on the front for two different styles of the effect. Big time favorite of mine. I really enjoyed doing this, and as much as I love these four pedals, ask me again in 6 months' time and I'll probably have another four favorites. For me, it's all about providing what's needed for what we're working on at that moment. And the great thing about Boss is that they're always working on something, and it would probably be real easy for them to just take some time off and coast for a bit. I think the direction they're going in right now is great. They're reissuing the classic pedals with the Waza tag. That makes the classics affordable and upgraded, but they're also still innovating with the MDP pedals, which are out there proving that digital doesn't mean what it did 15 years ago. Thank you so much for having me on. I had a lot of fun with it. Now back to you, Jason.
Next up, we have Matt and Rod from Pedal Picassos from right here in Australia. I've been watching their show for years. I've gone out and bought gear after watching episodes of their show, and quite frankly, I've been waiting for an excuse to collaborate with them. About 18 months ago, Rod moved from Melbourne to Adelaide, which is about 8 hours away, so they no longer make videos together. They make videos separately and they both upload them to the channel. So both Matt and Rod are going to give us their personal favourite Boss pedals. Thanks, fellas.
G'day, Jason. G'day, everyone. Thanks for having us on the Middle Age Gear Junkie today, and thank you for your time. So my favourite two Boss pedals of all time are these two. Oh yeah, check it out. This is the Super Distortion and Feedbacker. This is one of the original ones that runs on 12 volts instead of 9 volts, and it is a mountain of fun. And I'm going into my Boss Katana behind me there. my artist Mark II, just to make a boss all round. It sounds like this. And the reason I love this pedal more than any other Boss pedal is because it does this. It has feedback that you can bring in at any time, any volume, and you can even change the frequency of the feedback. And my second favourite Boss pedal is this old RV3, and I love this pedal for modes 4, 5, 6 and 7. There's 11 different modes in here, but 4, 5, 6 and 7, which are a mixture of different reverbs and delays. They sound great. And the best part is, even though this pedal's really, really old, this is also one of the made in Japan ones, you can actually run it out in full stereo, which sounds absolutely lush. So for my honourable mention, while we're talking about old Japanese Boss pedals, my honourable mention is this. Yes, that's right. This is a very beat up original HM2 pedal from Japan. I love this pedal. I know it gets a lot of hate. I know it gets a lot of, like the Metal Zone, I know it gets a lot of bad comments, but I absolutely adore this pedal, and you can use it from anything from a nice, smooth, creamy overdrive to just full on raging, rampaging distortion. So I love it. If you find one, grab one. That's me. Thanks for having me, Jace. I'll see you later.
G'day. This is my 3 favourite Boss pedals. I've chosen 3 Boss gain or overdrive pedals because they were sort of some of the first to the market, and these pedals, the DS1, the Blues Driver and the OD, really haven't changed that much in 40 years. I had a DS1 40 years ago. And it was my first real distortion pedal, and I loved it. Righto, let's dive in here. The Boss DS1, this is my first pedal, and I've revisited it since I had one, 40 years ago as a 16-year-old. It's has it changed much? I don't know. You can mod these, you can do Keeley mods, you can change up the clipping diodes. Is it fuzzy? It is when you go through a really clean amp, but you go through one bordering on clipping and you've got a sort of a scooped distortion. The Blues Driver, the BD2, this is a BD2, variant number 2. It's got more mids. Punches through a mix a lot more. Similar to a tube screamer, but it's got a different clipping and a different voice. Nowhere near the sustain of the DS1, but it's a really nice a really nice drive. Right, The OD3, the overdrive, it's had an OD, an OD2, and now the OD3. And this is a mix of these two pedals. This is a great rock tone. Still got more of a punchy mid-range voice with slightly more gain than what the blues driver's got. The designs themselves are over 40 years old, and I've spoken with Matt on the channel about this before. When Boss designed these pedals, they really, really got it right with having a large platform for you to actually stomp your foot on. You know, it's not all on one little toggle switch, although there's one little toggle switch underneath there, but your foot actually goes and your weight and the force gets spread out across that pad. You're not going to kick the knobs, the control knobs, because they're recessed down at a level below the knob. It's just such a great design, and that's why they haven't changed it in 40 years, because it's good, it works. And the fact that you can access the battery from the top, how cool. If you want batteries in it and they're on your pedal board, you don't have to pull the thing off your pedal board to access it. These are my three favourite Boss pedals. What are yours? Let us know.
So if we haven't met before, my name is Jason. I'm from a little town called Casino in Australia, and I'm a gear junkie. This was really difficult narrowing it down to my three favourite Boss pedals because I've owned over 50 different models, I think. But what I decided I'd do is maybe go through the ones that I use the most. The first pedal I've chosen is the Boss CS2 Compression Sustainer. Now, I bought one of these for the first time a couple of years ago, and I got it really cheap with the intention of flipping it for a profit. But little did I know that when I plugged it in, I just thought, this is the best compressor I've ever tried. It just works so well, particularly with a Strat. I ended up selling that one and then buying a mint condition unit, which I have here. It sounds good clean. At the moment, I'm using my Fender Deluxe Reverb. It just makes those notes really pop. But my favourite application for this pedal is actually pairing it with a light overdrive, usually my Marshall Bluesbreaker. But because we're talking about Boss today, I'm using the BD2W. I've got it set to custom mode. I've got it set to a nice, light and very dynamic overdrive. Generally speaking, I like my light overdrives to be really dynamic, but sometimes I want them to be a bit more squished, a bit more compressed, have a bit more sustain, make those notes really pop out. And that's where the compression sustainer really comes in. Now my next choice here was pretty simple. It's the Boss CE2. Now I have never tried a CE1. I do plan on owning one day, but the CE2 is a pedal that has stuck with me since I was a teenager. The CE2 is just so simple to use. It's just two knobs. In fact, what I've noticed is that I tend to prefer the Boss pedals that only have 2 or 3 knobs. I just find them really intuitive. The CE2 is a really good example of that because there isn't a bad sound in it. You can turn the knobs all the way up and it's a usable sound. You can turn them all the way down and you can get this sort of weird doubling effect, and everything in between is a usable sound. It's very, very musical. And that tone there with the depth almost all the way up and the rate about halfway, that is my usual go-to sound for this pedal. that is a usable sound. I actually use that on a song of mine for that exact part. It just has this almost organ-like sound. They stopped making this pedal around 1990, but the CE2W is available today, and it's a great pedal. In CE2 mode, it sounds identical, and it has CE1 mode, which is kind of like the CE1, but it's missing the preamp. That's a big part of the CE1 sound. You can always get a hold of one of them brand new, or you can look for one of these secondhand, but they're fantastic. Now, I found my last choice to be really difficult because there was a number of pedals I wanted to include here, but I've gone with the Boss SD1, and that's because it's my go-to solo boost for my live rig. Now, the Boss SD1 is considered to be their version of a tube screamer, or in my opinion, it's an updated version of the OD1, which came out before the tube screamer, so it really depends on your point of view. So what this type of pedal does is it rolls off bottom end, it rolls off top end, and it pushes through mid-range. And this helps to really focus the guitar sound to really make it stand out, particularly when you're playing single notes, lead lines, and riffs. So this is how I use the SD1. I put it in front of any other drive pedals or amplifier drive that I'm using. So I'll go back to using the Blues Driver BD2W. So this is going to be, I've still got it set at a light drive sound. And the SD1's going to really just reshape the frequency bandwidth. It really helps to reshape that tone and make it really cut through. Now I'm running through the drive channel of the Marshall DSL-40. When I engage the SD1, it will give me a little bit more drive, but it's also going to reshape that and make it a little bit fatter for single notes. So here's my honourable mentions, and like I said, I've got a few. So there's the PH2 Super Phaser, which is my favourite phaser, and on any other day, that could have been in my top 3. It's one of my favourite modulation pedals ever made. The Boss RC series, so any of the RC series are great. I've got the RC5 here, which is brilliant, which I bought after watching an episode of Pedal Picassos. The Boss DD series are legendary, and it doesn't matter which one you get, they're all great, and that was probably why I didn't choose one of them, because there's just so many of them, and they're all fantastic. The GE7 is the Mr. Fix-It of your guitar rig. If you don't have one of these, you need to get one. They're fantastic. They're super underrated. The DM2W, and I do mean the W, the custom mode of this is the best analog delay I have ever tried. I tried simulating it on my Strymon timeline and it couldn't do it. This is my favorite analog delay ever. On any other day, that could have been in the top list. And the OD1, because let's face it, without it, we all wouldn't be here today. I want to give a huge thanks to all of the channels that were involved in this video. Everybody I asked to be involved in this said yes, so I was massively humbled. Thank you so much, guys. I've left links in the description below to all of their channels, and if you haven't already, please go and check them out. They are massively informative, entertaining, and I'm always hanging out to see when one of these guys are putting out a new video. So thanks for watching. Please leave a comment below and tell us what your favourite Boss pedals are, because we'd really like to know. My name is Jason. Have a wonderful day.